You ever wake up one day and realize that the version of you that used to survive no longer fits the version of you that's meant to thrive? The version of you that knew how to endure pain but not how to receive peace. The version of you that knew how to fight but not how to flow. We've all had seasons where we got so used to being strong, we forgot to be healed. We learned how to carry trauma like a trophy and call it growth, when really it was just survival in disguise. But God didn't bring you this far for you to stay the same. He's calling you to outgrow who you were, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, relationally. That version of you served its purpose, but now it's expired. You can't become who you're destined to be while staying loyal to who you used to be. You can't walk into a new season while still wearing the wardrobe of your old wounds. And here's the thing about growth. It's not always gentle. Sometimes you have to force yourself to evolve. You've got to push past your patterns, stretch beyond your comfort zone, and tell your old self, thank you for getting me here, but you can't take me there. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. It happens when you get tired of repeating cycles that no longer serve your calling. God is saying, I can't bless the version of you that keeps pretending she's still broken. I need the healed version, the whole version, the one who believes she's worthy of more. But you've got to be willing to let go of what's familiar, even if it's functional. Because sometimes comfort is the enemy of calling. So this message today, it's not for the person who wants to stay stuck. It's for the one who knows there's more inside. It's for the woman, the man, the soul who's ready to grow even if it hurts, to stretch even if it stings, to evolve even if it means leaving behind people, patterns, and parts of yourself that can't survive where God is taking you. Tell somebody next to you, this time I'm not going back to who I was. Growth begins where comfort ends. Growth is not a gentle process. It's a stretching, a pulling, a breaking away from what's familiar so that something greater can emerge. Comfort feels good, but it rarely produces change. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. You can't evolve while clinging to what's easy. The same environment that feels safe is often the one that's silently suffocating your purpose. Comfort keeps you contained. Growth requires discomfort. God will sometimes disrupt your comfort, not to punish you, but to push you. Because if he doesn't push you, you'll convince yourself that where you are is enough, even when he's called you to more. You were not designed to live life on repeat. You were not created to build your identity around familiarity. The reason it hurts to grow is because you're breaking through boundaries that once defined you. The same walls that kept you safe are now keeping you stuck. Growth begins when you stop letting fear of change control you. You can't become new if you keep protecting the old. The moment you start resisting change, you start resisting destiny. God has a way of making comfort uncomfortable when he's ready to grow you. He'll shake the very things you thought were stable. He'll remove what you relied on. He'll close doors you thought were permanent, not because he's trying to hurt you, but because he's trying to expand you. Sometimes comfort is not peace, it's paralysis. It's that place where you've stopped dreaming, stopped stretching, stopped believing that more is possible. You've made peace with survival, but survival was never the goal. God didn't call you to just make it through life. He called you to multiply, to rise, to impact. And to do that, you have to be willing to leave comfort behind. Every major shift in your life will first come discomfort. The pain you feel right now may not be punishment. It might be preparation. Growth hurts because you're outgrowing what you've been settling for. Growth begins when you stop letting comfort dictate your decisions. You can't keep choosing what's easy and expect to walk in what's extraordinary. There's a version of you that only shows up when you're willing to step out of what's familiar. Growth requires risk. It means saying yes to the unknown. It means trusting God when you can't see what's next. Comfort says, stay where it's safe. Growth says, step out where it's sacred. You'll never know what God can do through you until you stop being afraid of what might happen to you. You've got to be willing to leave the shore to find the deeper waters of your destiny. Every time you cling to comfort, you delay transformation. You keep replaying old lessons because you refuse to graduate from them. You can't keep asking God to do something new while you stay loyal to what's old. The wilderness was never meant to be your home. It was meant to be your training ground. But if you fall in love with familiar pain, you'll never experience unfamiliar promise. God can't bless who you pretend to be, and he can't elevate who refuses to move. The longer you stay comfortable, the more you'll confuse stagnation with peace. But peace is not the absence of change. It's the presence of purpose. When God wants to grow you, he'll start making you uncomfortable in places you used to enjoy. What used to satisfy you will start to frustrate you. What used to feel right will start to feel restrictive. That's the Holy Spirit's way of saying it's time to move. Growth doesn't start with opportunity, it starts with agitation. The discomfort you feel is the signal that something inside you is shifting. You're not being buried, you're being planted. The soil feels heavy now, but the seed can't grow without pressure. You can't experience resurrection without first enduring the dirt. There's a reason why transformation feels like tension. You're being stretched between who you were and who you're becoming. You can't fit into old spaces anymore, but you haven't fully stepped into the new one yet. That's the in-between, the stretch zone, the holy tension where growth happens. It's where God molds your mindset, refines your habits, and reshapes your faith. The in-between doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're evolving. The pressure you're feeling isn't to break you, it's to build capacity. You can't pour into new opportunities with an old mindset. You can't step into destiny still attached to dysfunction. God uses discomfort to prepare your spirit for what's next. Comfort and calling can't coexist. When you answer the call of growth, you're saying yes to inconvenience. You're saying yes to late nights, quiet tears, and tough decisions. You're saying yes to outgrowing people who don't want to grow with you. Growth will often cost you relationships, routines, and versions of yourself that you used to depend on. But that's the price of elevation. You can't reach new levels holding on to what was meant for the last one. Sometimes God will isolate you just to elevate you. Because where you're going, not everyone can follow. Growth requires you to let go of who you were comfortable being, so you can become who you were created to be. Comfort keeps you repeating old patterns, but growth demands that you create new ones. Comfort says, I know how to handle this. Growth says, I'm learning something I've never needed before. Comfort lets you stay in control. Growth requires you to surrender control. You can't evolve without releasing what you've mastered. Sometimes the hardest part of growth is admitting that what used to work doesn't work anymore. You can't pray the same way, think the same way, love the same way, or lead the same way if you want to grow. God will stretch your faith by putting you in rooms that intimidate you and seasons that challenge you. That's not punishment. That's preparation for purpose. Growth doesn't come through convenience. It comes through confrontation. You have to confront your fears, your flaws, your excuses. You have to face the parts of yourself that you've been ignoring. Growth isn't just about doing more. It's about becoming more. It's about stepping into maturity and refusing to settle for mediocrity. You've got to stop hiding behind, that's just how I am. That may be how you were, but it doesn't have to be who you are. Growth says, I refuse to be defined by old behavior when God has called me to a new standard. The truth is, you'll never grow if you keep waiting for the perfect conditions. Growth requires you to move in faith, not comfort. It requires obedience without explanation. Sometimes you'll have to take steps before you see the staircase. Growth begins when you stop needing to understand and start being willing to trust. You can't wait for the fear to disappear before you move. You have to move while you're afraid. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. God doesn't need you to be fearless. He just needs you to be faithful. When you choose growth over comfort, you activate your next level. You give heaven permission to expand you. You open yourself up to lessons, opportunities, and blessings that were waiting for your yes. Growth doesn't always feel good, but it's always worth it. The tears you cry in transition will water the soil of your transformation. The pain you feel while stretching is proof that you're moving beyond limitation. Comfort may give you relief, but growth gives you revelation. There will be moments where growth feels lonely. When you step out of comfort, not everyone will understand. Some people will try to talk you back into who you used to be because your growth exposes their stagnation. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. You can love people and still leave their level. You can honor your history and still outgrow it. Growth requires you to be okay with being misunderstood because purpose will never make sense to people who have no desire to evolve. God will never call you to stay where you are when there's more in you to uncover. Growth isn't optional, it's obedience. Every new season of your life demands a new version of you. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins. You can't carry new blessings with an old belief system. God is trying to stretch your capacity because he's about to increase your influence. But you can't receive more if you keep clinging to less. Comfort will make you complacent, but growth will make you courageous. You've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's where faith is formed. That's where transformation begins. You don't grow in the easy seasons. You grow in the ones that test you, stretch you, and demand more from you than you thought you had. Growth begins when you stop praying for easy and start praying for endurance. It begins when you stop asking God to make it comfortable and start asking him to make it clear. Every great calling requires a breaking. God will break your routine before he builds your revelation. He'll interrupt your plans to introduce his purpose. He'll strip away what's temporary to show you what's eternal. The old version of you can't handle what's coming next, and that's why God keeps pushing you. Every time you think you've reached your limit, he stretches you again. He's not trying to hurt you. He's strengthening your spirit, expanding your faith, and elevating your perspective. Growth begins where comfort ends because comfort keeps you focused on survival while growth focuses you on significance. You weren't born to play it safe. You were born to make impact. You can't do that by hiding behind fear, excuses, or familiarity. The greater version of you is waiting on the other side of discomfort. You've just got to be brave enough to walk through it. Comfort might feel secure, but it's a trap. Growth might feel risky, but it's the only way to discover the fullness of who you are. God didn't call you to stay the same. He called you to keep becoming. You're not losing yourself in growth. You're finally meeting yourself for the first time. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. Healing requires separation, space, and courage to leave behind what once felt like home, but was really holding you hostage. Too often we try to recover in the same places where we were broken, expecting new peace to grow in old pain. But you can't heal where your triggers still live. You can't find freedom in the same environment that fed your fear. Healing isn't just about mending your heart. It's about moving your surroundings, your habits, and your mindset into alignment with the new version of you that God is creating. You have to disconnect from what damaged you long enough to rediscover who you are without the weight of it. The environment that hurt you will always invite you back because it's familiar. Familiar pain feels safe because at least you know what to expect. But healing requires faith. Faith to step into unfamiliar peace. Faith to build a new rhythm without chaos. Faith to believe that you deserve better than the cycles that broke you. Sometimes God will close doors and cut ties, not because he's cruel, but because he knows you'll keep returning to the place that wounded you if he doesn't make it uncomfortable enough to leave. He'll disturb your comfort so he can develop your character. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you because healing demands honesty. And it's hard to be honest in spaces where you've learned to hide. You can't truly open your heart when you're surrounded by people who expect you to stay the same. Healing requires vulnerability, but vulnerability feels dangerous when you're in a space that benefits from your brokenness. There are environments that thrive on your weakness. People who like you better when you're wounded because your strength convicts their stagnation. That's why God sometimes isolates you during your healing season. He's separating you from voices that keep you small. You can't heal around people who keep reminding you of who you used to be. Every time you start to grow, they bring up your past. Every time you begin to believe in yourself again, they question your transformation. Healing requires space to breathe, to think, to rebuild your identity without interference. The old environment will always tempt you to prove you've changed. But true healing doesn't argue, it outgrows. You don't need to explain your healing to people who contributed to your hurt. You just need to move. You need to relocate your spirit from survival mode to sacred space. Healing is a relocation of the soul. It's not always physical, it's spiritual, emotional, and mental. Sometimes you have to move from old thought patterns, from toxic relationships, from unhealed memories that play on repeat in your mind. The enemy doesn't always fight you with new weapons. He uses old environments. He knows if he can keep you tied to the place of your pain, you'll keep replaying what broke you instead of rebuilding what's inside you. That's why God says, come out from among them. He's calling you out of cycles, out of comfort zones, out of conversations that no longer serve your calling. You can't heal where you have to keep pretending you're not hurt. Some environments don't make room for honesty. You can't say you're tired because everyone expects you to be strong. You can't admit you're still struggling because everyone assumes you've moved on. But pretending delays healing. You can't fix what you refuse to face, and you can't face what you keep minimizing. Healing requires you to tell the truth to yourself and to God. And sometimes that truth means admitting that the people or places you love are no longer good for your growth. Healing is not just about leaving something, it's about learning something. It's realizing that the same conditions that caused your pain cannot be the same ones that cure it. You can't expect new results while surrounding yourself with the same energy that broke you. Some of you are trying to find peace in places built on dysfunction. You're trying to recover from rejection in the arms of people who still don't see your worth. You're trying to find clarity in confusion, validation in voids, love in loneliness. But healing begins when you stop returning to what hurt you, no matter how much it calls your name. There's a reason Jesus often called people away from their environments before performing miracles. He took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village before healing him. Why? Because sometimes the miracle can't happen in the place where the memories of pain still live. The people around you can't always see who you're becoming because they're too familiar with who you were. Familiarity can blind people to your transformation. That's why God has to take you out to give you a fresh perspective, a new atmosphere, a place where your healing isn't competing with your history. Healing requires boundaries. You can't stay open to everything and expect to recover. Some environments are not evil, but they're exhausting. They keep you pouring until you're empty, giving until you're drained. You can't heal while constantly managing chaos. You have to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's the soil where restoration grows. When you leave the environment that hurt you, you're not running away. You're reclaiming your peace. You're saying, I'm choosing wholeness over history. Sometimes the environment that hurt you isn't external, it's internal. It's your mindset, your inner dialogue, the voice that keeps reminding you of your failures. You can't heal while replaying every mistake. You can't move forward while obsessing over what you could have done differently. Healing means confronting your thoughts and changing the narrative. It means replacing shame with grace, fear with faith, guilt with growth. It means speaking life over yourself until your soul starts to believe it again. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you, because healing thrives in truth, and truth can't grow in denial. Some of us are still living in the echo of pain because we're too afraid to leave what's familiar. We keep holding on to the hope that the same people who broke us will suddenly decide to fix us. But healing doesn't depend on their apology. It depends on your decision. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need closure from chaos. You just need courage to walk away. When God calls you to heal, he will start closing doors. Don't fight to reopen them. Don't chase people who have shown you they can't handle your growth. Don't negotiate with pain for peace. Every time you try to stay in an environment that no longer fits, you limit your healing. God is not trying to isolate you. He's trying to insulate you. He's covering you, protecting you, and teaching you how to live without depending on what broke you. You'll know you're healing when you stop craving what once hurt you. You'll stop longing for attention that disrespects your peace. You'll stop revisiting memories that no longer serve your growth. You'll stop fighting to be understood by people who were never assigned to understand you. Healing will teach you that distance is not disrespect, it's discipline. It's the recognition that your heart deserves an environment that doesn't keep reopening your wounds. It's hard to leave, especially when your identity has been tied to that environment for so long. You start to wonder, who am I without them? Who am I outside of this? But that's the beauty of healing. It introduces you to yourself again. It shows you the version of you that existed before the pain. It reveals the strength you forgot you had, the joy you thought you lost, the peace you didn't know was possible. But you'll never meet that version of yourself if you keep living in the same space that broke you. Sometimes the reason healing feels delayed is because you're still negotiating with what needs to end. You're still answering calls from pain, still visiting memories that drain you, still engaging in cycles that confirm your insecurities. You keep trying to heal while holding hands with what hurt you, but real healing requires release. You can't heal from what you refuse to let go. You can't create space for new blessings while clinging to old burdens. God will often remove you from certain environments before he restores you. That's not rejection, it's redirection. He's saying, I need to separate you from what hurt you so I can show you who you really are. Healing is transformation, and transformation can't happen in the same soil that contaminated your roots. You need new surroundings, new routines, new influences. You need spaces that speak to your wholeness, not your wounds. You can't heal while constantly being reminded of your brokenness. You can't rebuild your confidence while surrounded by voices that question your worth. Healing flourishes in environments of faith, encouragement, and truth. That's why God sometimes sends you into solitude to quiet the noise so you can hear his voice again. Because his voice doesn't sound like condemnation, it sounds like restoration. It says, you're still worthy, you're still chosen, you're still mine. The environment that hurt you may have shaped you, but it doesn't define you. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the product of your trauma. You are the testimony of your transformation. Healing begins the moment you decide that your future deserves a safer space than your past. It begins the moment you stop revisiting places where peace can't breathe. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means forgiving yourself for staying too long. It means releasing the version of you that kept trying to make it work. It means recognizing that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not abandoning people, you're choosing peace. You're not rejecting your past, you're respecting your progress. Healing is saying, I love me enough to leave. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you because every time you return, you reopen the wound. Healing is about protecting your progress. It's choosing to move differently, think differently, live differently. It's realizing that God can't do a new thing if you keep clinging to the old. He's calling you out of toxic patterns, out of old environments, into a place where your spirit can breathe again. When you finally leave the place that hurt you, you'll notice how much lighter you feel. Peace will feel strange at first because you've been used to chaos. Stillness will feel uncomfortable because you've been addicted to survival. But keep going, keep healing, keep choosing environments that water your growth instead of draining it. Because every time you choose peace over pain, you're reminding your heart that it deserves to be whole. Healing isn't easy, but it's holy. And it starts the moment you walk away from what broke you. Elevation requires separation. It's one of the hardest truths to accept because separation doesn't always feel like success. It often feels like loss, confusion, and heartbreak. But before God elevates you, he isolates you. Before he promotes you, he prunes you. Before he expands your influence, he refines your circle. Separation is not rejection, it's redirection. God removes what can't go with you because he's making room for what must. It's not personal, it's purposeful. Some people were essential for your past, but they're not equipped for your future. The season you're stepping into requires a different version of you, and that version can't survive in the company of everyone who knew your old one. Elevation is costly. Everyone prays for the promise, but few are willing to endure the process. Separation is the process that prepares you for the promise. It's God's way of trimming your life of anything that would contaminate your calling. He'll separate you from people, places, and patterns that once made you feel safe but are now holding you back. You'll start to notice that conversations don't hit the same. Friendships that once felt fulfilling start to feel draining. Environments that used to excite you now exhaust you. That's not arrogance, it's awareness. It's the Holy Spirit showing you that you've outgrown what you used to tolerate. You can't reach new altitudes while carrying old attachments. The air is thinner at higher levels, which means not everything or everyone can breathe where God is taking you. When he elevates you, he's not just changing your position, he's transforming your posture. He's teaching you how to handle isolation without losing identity. He's showing you that being set apart is not punishment, it's preparation. Every time you feel alone, it's because God is building something in you that can't be built in a crowd. Separation sharpens your sensitivity to his voice. When you no longer have the noise of everyone else's opinion, you can finally hear his direction. Separation hurts because it exposes dependency. You start to see where you placed your confidence in people instead of God. You start to notice the habits you leaned on instead of healing. But elevation demands that you shift from depending on familiarity to depending on faith. God can't bring you into new levels of blessing if you're still clinging to old sources of validation. He'll remove your safety nets so you learn to walk by faith, not fear. You'll think you're losing everything, but in reality, you're gaining clarity. The higher you go, the quieter it gets. The elevation may feel lonely, but it's in that solitude where vision is born. Elevation requires separation because your old circle can't always handle your new calling. Some people loved you when you were broken, but your healing threatens their comfort. They were connected to your pain, not your purpose. And the moment you start walking in freedom, they start questioning your authenticity. That's why God had to separate you. Because the crowd that clapped for your wounds won't celebrate your wholeness. There are people who benefited from your brokenness, but your elevation exposes who they really are. Don't take it personally when God starts pruning your relationships. He's protecting your destiny. You can't take everyone with you. It's one of the hardest lessons of growth. Loyalty is beautiful, but it becomes bondage when it keeps you tied to what's beneath your level. You can love people without limiting yourself. You can honor where you came from without being confined to it. Every relationship isn't meant to be permanent. Some are seasonal, sent to teach you lessons that prepare you for longevity elsewhere. Don't confuse temporary assignments with lifetime attachments. When God starts separating, it's not because people are bad. It's because your purposes are no longer aligned. Sometimes separation comes through conflict. Things start falling apart, not because you did something wrong, but because God is shifting you. The argument that ended the friendship, the job that didn't renew your contract, the opportunity that suddenly disappeared, it all looked like rejection, but it was divine release. God will close doors that your emotions wanted to keep open. He'll end connections you prayed would last. But if you could see what he saw behind the scenes, you'd thank him for every separation. The people who walked away made space for the ones who will walk with you. The things that fell apart made room for what's falling into place. Elevation demands a clean foundation. You can't build high on unstable ground. That's why separation happens first. It's God clearing out what can't support the weight of your next level. He's removing shaky support systems, weak faith, inconsistent patterns, and hidden distractions, because once he elevates you, the pressure increases. You'll need a foundation that can sustain the blessing without crumbling under it. Separation is the spiritual detox that prepares you for promotion. It strips you of dependency on external validation so that your confidence is rooted in God alone. You'll know separation is happening when God starts shifting your appetite. The things you used to crave Attention, approval, entertainment, chaos start losing their flavor. Your spirit gets restless around conversations that no longer challenge you. You stop being satisfied with surface level living because there's something deeper calling you. That's the sign of elevation. God is stretching your capacity for purpose. He's increasing your hunger for holiness. You start realizing that not everything that's good to you is good for you. Separation becomes your standard. You no longer chase connection for comfort. You wait for alignment that carries destiny. Elevation requires you to walk alone before you can lead others. God has to test your obedience in solitude. Can you still trust him when no one's watching? Can you still obey when no one's clapping? Can you still pray when no one's encouraging you? Because elevation doesn't just come with blessing, it comes with responsibility. You can't steward more if you're still dependent on external motivation. Duration teaches you self-discipline, focus, and resilience. It's God's way of building your internal strength before he increases your external influence. Separation is refinement. It exposes what's real and what's residue. It helps you identify what's pure purpose and what's personal pride. You start realizing that not everything you lost was a loss. Some of it was a lesson. The people who left didn't destroy you. They revealed you. The detours didn't delay you. They develop you. Separation purifies your motives. It teaches you to do things from conviction, not convenience. It forces you to evaluate who and what deserves access to you. Because when you know your value, you stop giving VIP access to people who only pay general admission effort. Elevation requires separation because destiny has weight. You can't carry destiny with dead weight attached to you. You can't soar while holding on to things that refuse to fly. God will strip you of excess baggage so you can move freely into your next. Every separation, every goodbye, every unexpected ending, it's God lightening your load. You think you're being emptied, but you're actually being equipped. You can't carry everything and still climb. Some people were meant to be a part of your story, but not your summit. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've learned how to love without limiting yourself. Separation is not just about people, it's about patterns. God will separate you from habits that hinder your growth. He'll convict you about the things you've been tolerating. He'll ask you to walk away from distractions that keep you small. Sometimes the hardest separation is from your old self, the one that doubts, procrastinates, settles, and self-sabotages. Elevation demands a new mindset. You can't take insecurity into influence. You can't take fear into faith. You can't take pride into purpose. Every level of growth requires a version of you that's lighter, wiser, and more surrendered. The isolation that comes with elevation is sacred. It's in that silence where God downloads strategy, vision, and wisdom. You start to understand that solitude isn't loneliness, it's intimacy. It's the space where God strips away the noise so he can speak directly to your soul. Don't rush out of isolation trying to reconnect with what God disconnected. Don't reach for the familiar when he's introducing you to the future. The season of separation is where you develop the discipline that sustains success. It's where you learn to depend on his presence more than people's applause. Elevation requires separation because destiny is delicate. You can't expose it to everyone. Not everyone can handle the process it takes to become who you're called to be. Some will misunderstand your silence, misinterpret your distance, and label your boundaries as arrogance. But that's because they're looking from the level you left, not the one you're climbing to. You can't explain elevation to people who are comfortable on the ground. Your separation will offend those who benefited from your complacency. Don't apologize for evolving. Growth is not betrayal, it's obedience.